Thanks, everybody. So my name is Jared. I'm the youngest of three. But in my day job, I work at a company called Vercel. But today I want to talk to you all about building high-performance AI native products. And when my dad asked me to give this talk, I asked him, like, well, who am I talking to? And he's like, well, a bunch of marketers. And I was like, okay, not usually my target audience. I usually sell to developers, so I have nothing to sell you today. But what I do want to share with you is how we think about building products, because I think it's going to be very applicable to how you navigate this ever-changing landscape of AI. So what I'm going to show you is a demo of the stuff that we're doing. And then I want to talk to you about the way we've built our teams internally and how we approach the problem space. And then you're going to be able to take this framework and apply it to like pretty much anything you look at. And from the products that you saw today, you'll be able to sort of back propagate this, I won't give it away, this framework, and it will help you think about the AI space. So about Vercel, if you've never heard of us, we are a high-performance web hosting company. We host the front ends for ChatGPT, for OpenAI, for Sonos, for e-commerce sites like Under Armour, Chico's, you name it. We also are the creators and maintainers of the world's most popular web framework, which is called Next.js. If you've never heard of it, that's cool. Ask your developers. They have. It's the web framework that ChatGPT itself and Claude and Perplexity are all built with. So you actually probably interact with it every single day. So we think of ourselves as the company, as the champions of the web, owning the most popular web framework in the world. And so it's up to us to define what the future of the web looks like. And so AI is obviously a huge part of that, right? The way we all interact with websites is going to change and already has changed. And for us, Vercel is the creators of the tools that developers use to build these experiences. AI is critically important. And that's what my team at Vercel does. And so we actually build, and I talked to the OpenAI team, actually have a meeting tomorrow. We work with Claude, we look with the OpenAI team on their actual performance of their applications and websites. And we build an open source toolkits for other developers to build similar experiences. And we actually have this SDK called the AI SDK. And I'll just show you a sample of the stuff you can build with it. And this is not giving away anything that's coming in ChatGPT, but just to pique your interest of like what's possible. What we're showing off here is a mixture of both interacting with an AI language model and also rich, interactive, stateful UI components. This is a financial assistant demo. And as you can see here, the user's actually able to purchase a stock in an agentic flow very easily. And the point here is, this is just showing you like what sort of bleeding edge can look like. But what's interesting is that this entire framework that again, most AI products you're seeing is built with, is that it came out of another project of ours on the AI team, and that's called V0. And so we're actually researching something even more alien and frontier, which is at Vercel, we're researching fully generative interfaces. The ability for the most personalized, adaptive, responsive interfaces of them all. And when we started researching this, we started playing with language models, we discovered that there's some shortcomings. And between speed and context length and a handful of other, and cost too, for what it's worth, we're just not there yet. And so this isn't really possible. But there's still something to be there. There's still something there. And so we actually built a prototype and a product around it called V0, which instead of using AI to generate the full interface, a fully interactive application like something from Star Wars or Star Trek, we actually just decided that there's a lot of value in just using it for design. So even if the application itself isn't interactive, if you just nail the layout and the styles, there's actually a lot of value. And so V0 is a tool that helps developers generate UI code from just text prompts and images. And while this doesn't replace designers, it certainly shortens the software development lifecycle. And I'll show you what this now looks like. So this is the homepage of v0.dev. You enter a prompt. And this is, again, for your developer or your designer or your product manager. And again, we're just focused on the layout here and the design. What you're about to see, this interface is not interactive in any way. Or it's a little interactive, I should say, but it's not like a full app. It's just the layout. And you can continue to refine it. You can choose from multiple options, kind of like Midjourney. But instead of generating images like Midjourney does, this is actually generating code that developers can use in their applications. And so what's awesome about this is that it truly accelerates the development process and gets you from idea to code much faster. So let's look at a little bit more. So you can also like pick on an area and edit it. And I would have done this live, but I guess AV issues, but it's live. Just go to v0.dev. We're actually in production, and we've been in production for several months. We've done about 5 million different UI generations. And the rest of this talk is going to be about the process in which we have built at Vercel to improve this product, which I think is of interest, because when everybody you talk to is like, oh, Midjourney, it's amazing, and how do they get that quality, and it's just constantly improving, and even us, myself, we were naive, let's just say, about what it takes to build such a system and go to production with it, from a security perspective, from an organization perspective, and from a product perspective too. So you can see here, if you get bored, you can actually just, sorry. So what's happening on the right here is that like, so in addition to prompting, you just edit the code directly, which is quite nice. You can also like view it in a couple different environments, which is nice. You can make it responsive. And again, this isn't like a Figma or a Photoshop. It's real code. That's what's happening. So you could imagine by using AI, this is immensely valuable for developers because it removes this intermediate state of Photoshop or Figma, right? And you had this whole life cycle before where you're like, oh, I've got a Jira ticket, I gotta get a designer, they gotta do some mocks, then it's gotta go to a whiteboard, and I gotta, then they get the developer involved, and he tries something, or she tries something, and it's a disaster, right? It takes forever. But with this, you can go from 0 to like something pretty quick. But the goal here is to not actually like ship a working app, as I mentioned earlier. It's actually just get something you can copy and paste, and that's what the name implies. V0 is short for version 0. So the idea is the developer can just like quickly initialize a project, grab the code they generated online, and copy it into their project. So this is the video of that. So remember how I said we're researching generative interfaces? Well, we actually did that, and so V0 is a fully generative interface. You can prompt it whatever you want. That is our end goal. And we want one day to be able to generate like any kind of application. But we need a framework in which to bootstrap the data set, the AI, and the processes internally to get there. And we've been focused on that ever since. And the rest of this talk is about that journey. So as you know, the world has changed. My dad, if you were the prior talk, we were saying that like there's people born today will never be smarter than AI, and that is true. But to chart that out, and I took this graph from my friends at OpenAI, I just wanted to visualize that for you. So the blue bars are like model reasoning. And the way that you should think about this and the framework you should use is really not thinking about like, oh, this is going to replace my job. Think about it at a task level. So to get a taste of what's coming, GPT-3 era models can basically automate a 5-second task. GPT-4 era models can do like a 5-minute task. And what's coming can do a 5-hour task. And that's the framework you should use and think about when you're building ahead. But when we talk about like building ahead, you have to think about there's a totally different way that we're building software now. And the way I like to just distinguish between the old way of building software and the new way of building software, and even at a company like Vercel, where we think we're like pretty smart and we think we're at the bleeding edge, this is fundamentally different than what we were doing like 6 months ago. So I want to describe sort of the landscape really quickly. So software 1.0 types of products, These are deterministic. These are the classic conditional statements that are going to have tickets and Jira boards, and you're going to run the normal software development lifecycle. You're going to write code that is extremely deterministic. You're going to do test-driven development. You're going to develop software the way you're used to. In the new world, Andre Karpathy, who used to run AI at Tesla and used to work at OpenAI as well, has this great blog post exactly this subject. In Software 2.0, it's really all about data and algorithms and scale, and ultimately a flywheel, which I'll get to later. So the reason that's this AI boom and you're seeing that at the product level is because with the advent of these new models and new services, they have democratized AI. And if you compare them to what was in the past, the ML phenomenon of like the late 2000 teens, whatever, with TensorFlow and scikit-learn, this was like a very scientific small community that was really into this. And while you definitely had machine learning, I'm sure all of you marketers were sold that. Now you're getting sold AI. And there's a huge difference there because of who can access these systems and build these types of tools. So with all this being said, how do you keep up? How do you build products? And how do you assess new tools and services? And we were in the same place at Vercel. So what I want to talk to you all about, and the key takeaway here, and I want to walk through, is this flywheel. So it doesn't matter what the AI does. It doesn't matter whether it's generating images, whether it's generating code, whether it's generating birthday cards, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to automate, you need a flywheel. And I want to walk you through what that flywheel is, and then you can think about it next time you get pitched something in AI, and next time you need to understand if there's an opportunity to build a product or automate a system or service. So the first thing you need to do are write evals. Who here has heard of an eval? Okay. Evals are basically like a test for how you measure the quality of a model or system. And it's like the most fundamental unit of AI workloads, because without them, you're flying on vibes. You're flying blind. And you can make changes to your systems, but without evals, you have no clue what you're doing. These systems are probabilistic. They are not deterministic. They are software 2.0. And so when you make a change to a single character in a single prompt, you have no clue what is going to happen. And depending on the use case, your service or product could be extremely sensitive for reasons that you do not understand. And so writing robust evals is the most important thing that any AI company or product is going to be doing. And if you talk with folks at OpenAI for long enough, they will ask you, can you send me an eval for that? Or any AI company really will ask the same thing. So let's walk through what these are. So let's pretend we've got, I think somebody had something that's the MBA demo from before was generating some SQL query. So let's do, I whipped this up. So the system prompt would be something like, answer the following question syntactically correct with syntactically correct SQLite, which is a dialect of SQL. Okay, and it doesn't matter. Maybe this is the underlying prompt for imagine we're doing some sort of BI tool, right? Some sort of subsystem, doesn't really matter. And let's take I guess in this situation, the prompt is, how many car makers are there in Germany? And I want to highlight there is misspelled because it's important that your evals contain real world data, not just completely golden stuff that you've made in the lab. You want it to be representative of what users actually say, because every single character does actually count when you work with at least language models. And so then you'd write or find or gather the perfect greenfield output, so some SQL query. And then what you would do in an eval harness or an eval test framework is run the eval as it's stated, and you would get some sort of actual output. And while these look very similar, they're different. And depending on the setup, one is very fucking wrong. So here, there's car makers is not right. Countries is wrong. Country.country is wrong, sorry. And country.name doesn't exist. So there's like 4, and there's also some stylistic differences between like the way this person, the expected output is writing SQL with like as T1 versus just leaving it unnamed. So there's both stylistic and syntactical problems with this. And if this is too down deep into the weeds, don't worry about it. What we're just talking about here is setting up a test framework for your expected inputs and outputs. And what this will force you to do is gather data and operationalize it. And so the solution to this is actually to update the prompt to include descriptive information around the names of the tables and their keys and columns and foreign keys. And this would presumably solve the problem. You'd rerun the evaluation, and presumably you'd get the expected output to match the actual output. And if this sounds like a grind, it's a grind. It sucks. So in theory, this is all fixed now, and we're green. So this is just like one prompt, one example, one subset of a thing. But it's part of a larger way of working where you can continually improve these systems. And so the next thing that happens when you have an eval is you need to go gather that data that would, let's say, fix the problem. Now, in this past situation, there's maybe some retrieval augmented generation or just a better prompt that could have fixed the problem. But sometimes you just need to fill in data. And so the other extremely valuable part of this flywheel is the frontier content, your IP, your knowledge. And if you, from growing up with my dad and being around, I don't know, many of you, and being in too many conversations, I know that data hygiene is, let's say, not great in marketing organizations. And what I will say is that data hygiene at AI native companies is impeccable. And so the way that you will figure out how you need to operationalize your data are by the evals that have failed. So by this failure set, you'll know where you need to improve and either gather, create, or grind out this data. And yeah, you can go to scale and pay, $1 zillion for them to go pump out the data that you need, but it is garbage in, garbage out. And once you do that, then you need a way to ride the wave of AI. And you need to be iterating on the latest and greatest models and strategies. And for V0, for example, we're running, I don't know, probably around 10 different different models and strategies and subsystems at any given moment. Our time to deploy a new model is something like 4 or 5 minutes. So we can read a tweet and test something like in a couple hours. And this is extremely important to us because you can't keep up. It's impossible. So the only thing to do is to tighten the feedback loop. And so you need to design abstractions and services and systems that let you, what we say, iterate to greatness and deploy very quickly. The other thing is that just don't train your own model. It's not worth it. It is, if you grind hard on evals, hard enough and getting better data, there's just a lot you can do. You also can't afford likely to do this. Yes, you can go and you can go and get a $2 or $3 million model from OpenAI, but I guarantee that your team internally hasn't eked out every last bit of performance from just the open consumer grade models that are out there. And I'm not just, and before you even go train your own, you can fine tune, you can use RAG, you can use post training. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do before you go out to train your own. And if you do want to train your own, just know what you're up against. I like to tell the story of Databricks. They trained their own model, DBRX, and it never reached the top of the leaderboard, and it was more or less obsolete within 3 weeks. So if you love spending $10 million bills, this is a fun exercise. But at the end of the day, what this does, through evals and data and then your model strategies, allow you to build a better product. And once you've built a better product, you can get more distribution, or you can hire a marketer. That helps too. But as you have more distribution, this actually gets you to the next key unlock in the flywheel, and the last one that's the most important that everyone kind of forgets, which is feedback. So the most important aspect of V0 is the feedback we get from users, and identifying the signals in the application or service that we get for us It is monetization. It is churn. We can look at when a user churns. We can look at every single prompt that they've generated, and we can assess basically where there are gaps. And then we use that information to write better evals. And when we write better evals, we realize, oh, we need to go get better at dashboards, or we need to go get better at e-commerce landing pages, or whatever the gap is we have, or, oh, we're not that good at dark mode or accessibility. Whatever it is, we go and fill in the gap, and we kick around the flywheel again. And it's over and over and over that we run this loop. And so at the end of the day, your feedback is mission critical. And one of the things that is surprising is that most of the content that gets generated by users is mostly useless. So for Midjourney, for example, same. Most of the, you can't just like train on the whole data set and expect to get that much better output. Same thing with V0. If we were to fine tune a model on the just raw data set, it would be pretty mid. We need to go curate and score and rank the best parts of that data. And we need to go create and fill in by looking at the feedback and curate this like golden data set. And that's what we're all doing here. So basically, from the feedback, these negative signals, we basically go into our core data set and we improve it. We don't really do anything with the generations because they're not actually that useful, which is counterintuitive because you think with like a tool like Midjourney, like the more scale, the better, the more users, the better, because there's more generations and you could just train off that. But no, the more scale means more feedback, which means you get better evals, which means you get better data and you run the loop. And so the reason why I want to share this with you is because you can apply it to pretty much any AI system or service or process internally. And your teams need to probably be reconfigured and rethought of around this flywheel. That's how we work. So we have teams we have an eval team and we have a data team. We have just regular product engineers. We care a lot about feedback. We also have outside staff and contractors that help us with scoring and ranking said feedback and confirming that our evals are correct. So this is the way that AI native companies are built, and just generally speaking. And so I thought it would be informative to share that all with you, because really what we're talking about here is the future product flywheel, right? As the world moves towards these AI native, to everything becomes AI native, this is how the majority of product teams are going to work. And whether you are evaluating a vendor because you're not building something in-house, you still are going to end up running into this at some resolution or capacity. So, you know, let's say you're farming out this, your I don't know, WPP, and you're building an internal AI platform for marketing content automation. How are you holding those people accountable to that, to whether it's good or not? How are you going to decide whether they are doing their job? Are you going to just rely on vibes? Or are you going to like run a rigorous scientific process where like, are they improving acceptance rates of the content that gets generated? Because maybe there's a little cool startup in Silicon Valley that's doing a better job. But without these evals, without this flywheel rocking, you're flying blind. And it's just going to be continually more and more challenging to operate in this landscape without these sorts of systems in place. So the goal here is to tighten these feedback loops as much as possible. And if you're asking, well, what do I focus on? What do I do? The thing that you should be closing the gap on is once you get this feedback loop and once you get this flywheel in place, what you want to do is reorganize yourselves and buy tools and invest in tools and services and processes that help you iterate faster. Because in a world of chaos where there's new models dropping every day, the only thing you can do is sort of embrace this chaos and build sort of anti-fragile systems that gain and take advantage of it. And the way to do that is by closing down this, by moving as fast as possible. And so we like to call that iterating to greatness at Vercel. So anyway, that's my imparting words to you. I hope that it was helpful and informative. If you're interested in Vercel, you can check us out at vercel.com. And big shout out for Shelly for putting on this awesome conference today. I think we're closing it out. It was great. So thank you.